Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Today, Monday the 7th of November, sees the publication of Dr. C. Rangarajan's autobiographical account of his days as the Deputy Governor and Governor of the Reserve Bank of India and as Governor of Andhra Pradesh. Here is the book. It's called Forks in the Road, My Days at RBI and Beyond. And joining me now to talk about some of the fascinating stories and revealing details in that book is the author himself, Dr. Rangarajan. Dr. Rangarajan, let's start with the economic crisis of 1990 when you were Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India. In August of that year, 1990, the RBI officially wrote to the National Front government, which was ruling in Delhi at the time, recommending that India should approach international institutions for help, but the government failed to act. You call this a failure of political leadership. You say the government was reluctant to act either because it had not recognized the seriousness of the situation or because it was ideologically averse to go to the IMF. As a result, the crisis got progressively worse. Would you accept that given the situation in August 1990 and the fact that the situation markedly deteriorated, this was irresponsibility on the part of the then Finance Minister Madhu Dandavate and also the then Prime Minister VP Singh?
I have narrated the events as they unfolded. The concern about the India's balance of payment situation after the Iran-Iraq war and the extremely difficult situation in financing the current account deficit. We were taking a number of steps, both the Reserve Bank and the Government of India together. But there were two problems with the high level of current account deficit. One was the size of the current account deficit itself. The second was how to finance that current account deficit. In fact, a country may have high current account deficit, but if its credibility and if its standing in the world is such that it can raise funds to meet the current account deficit, the problem is less. But we had a problem after the war with the petroleum prices rising almost by 2 times. The situation was that we were finding it difficult to finance the deficit, that is, find institutions and others who can provide us the resources. Therefore, in that situation, we in the Reserve Bank felt that it is time to go to the international financial institutions, most particularly IMF, to raise the resources. And while we have been discussing with the government at various levels, we finally, I think the governor, who was Malhotra at that time, met the finance minister also. And then he sent a letter in August 1990 explaining the situation and telling that in order to raise resources from others, a program at our IMF was very much necessary, because that provided a kind of support. And therefore, the others were willing to come forward and provide resources. Therefore, first of all, the IMF has been set up primarily with the purpose of enabling the countries suffering from balance of payments difficulties to overcome them. So that is one of the main objectives with which that institution was set up. So we wrote, and while we have been talking, no action immediately was taken. Actually, even the history of the Reserve Bank of India simply also says,
can I interrupt
decision.
at that point? You wrote, you recommended that the government should approach international institutions like the IMF. As you said, no action was taken. And as you say in your book, the crisis got worse thereafter. So was it irresponsible of the then finance minister and the then prime minister not to act?
I am not privy to what happened in the government of India. I mean, why the approach to the fund was not made that quickly. Because please remember, all of this is a matter of months. I mean, we are talking August, and then finally we went in November 1990, we started negotiations. Therefore,
yes, again, I'm interrupting you, sir. Please remember what you write in your book. By December 1990, you say, and I'm quoting you, a fast deterioration had taken place. Again, I'm quoting you, say, by December 1990, the reserves were just equivalent to 3 weeks of imports. So,
yes.
Given the situation, and clearly it would not have deteriorated had they gone to the IMF in August, was it irresponsible of the government of the day not to act? Their best advice that the RBI was saying, go to the IMF, they didn't bother.
No, let us look at what would have happened had we approached in August 1990. Now, one possibility is that at that particular time, since the reserves were still at some level, which is not too bad, then probably we might have been able to push our weight a little more. I mean, after all, everybody knew, everybody can forecast also what is going to happen. So therefore, the point at issue is, it was pointed out.
Sir, why are you shying away from saying what is so clearly apparent from your book? You call it, and I'm quoting you, a failure of political leadership. Those are your words, not mine. So why are you shying away from saying that the government of the day was irresponsible in not accepting the advice of the RBI?
No, I'm not saying about what is the government of the day. I mean, perhaps I only emphasize the political leadership. Please remember that. I mean, I think the
political leadership is the prime minister, the political leadership is the finance minister, and if they failed, is it not also tantamount to irresponsibility because they were advised by the governor of the RBI to go to the IMF and they didn't act? So I ask you for the last time, and then I'll move on. Is this not irresponsible?
No, the point is that the people in the government, I mean, the officials and others, they were all conscious of the thing. Perhaps, I mean, I have carefully chosen the words that I've written, and you can hold me to what I have written.
All right.
But the point really, yes.
I'll repeat the words you've written. A failure of political leadership, but I'll point out to the audience that 3 or 4 times I've tried to get you to say that this failure was tantamount to irresponsibility by the then Prime Minister and the then Finance Minister. But that further step, you are clearly determined not to take. Let's move on. When you found in December 1990 that the reserves were just equivalent to 3 weeks imports, and that's a quotation from your book, at that point, did India consider defaulting?
Well, the question now, it is not a matter of a decision. It's a matter of what would happen if the current account deficit continued to be what it was, and we were finding it difficult to be able to raise the resources. But we were prepared for everything. I mean, but we really wanted to avoid.
Prepared for everything, when you say prepared for everything, are you saying that you at the RBI were prepared for defaulting, that it would happen on its own because we wouldn't be able to raise the resources? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes. I mean, when you think about policy, you think of eventualities here, there, everywhere, and therefore you do it. But then we were essentially looking at how to avoid that situation. I mean, that is the most important thing. Yes, we were aware. But you see, there are countries in the world, let me tell you, who decided as a matter of policy to default, in the sense that let it go. Therefore, let them understand that we can do it. But we did not think of it as an option.
I
We did not
understand
think of
what
it
you're
as an
saying. Default was not an option that you actively considered as a solution to the problem, but you were, as you put it, and I'm quoting you, prepared for a default because you were prepared for all eventualities. Your words were all eventualities here, there, and everywhere, but you wanted to avert this. So the RBI was prepared that the situation might come to India defaulting. In fact, you go one step further in your book. You say the position was so acute that there was even talk of selling properties owned by government abroad. One of the properties you say that was considered for sale is the embassy in Tokyo.
You understand? The way of writing is essentially to point out how serious the situation was. I think the point at that particular time, I think the mention about that, even the embassy property in Tokyo, for example, that was I think it is mentioned somewhere. I think that we should really look at all possibilities through which we can raise resources, and but it is mentioned to highlight or to make the people understand how serious the situation was.
Absolutely. The situation was so serious that even the possibility of selling government-owned properties abroad, such as the embassy in Tokyo, were considered. Now, eventually, under the Chandrasekhar government, India approached the IMF, and you were part of the team that flew to Washington to negotiate the arrangement. The problem was that as those negotiations were happening, the Chandrasekhar government itself was collapsing in Delhi. As you point out, it wasn't even able to present a full budget. How difficult were those negotiations?
No, I see the negotiations are at two levels or at two stages. First, with some broad mandate from the government, you really negotiate what is desirable, negotiate an arrangement which meets many of our requirements. Now, then there is the other thing, namely the political masters, the political system approves that kind of an arrangement. Now, we were at the first stage. I think we had not yet gone to the second stage at that time. Therefore, we started looking at various things, what we wanted at that particular time, what IMF may have in its mind, or what it had in its mind, and try to work out the preliminaries first. But I think we were able to convince the fund at that time that we are very serious in negotiating. We are very serious in trying to come to an understanding so that we come out of the situation.
In other words, you were able, along with your colleagues in Washington, to convince the IMF, despite the fact that the IMF was also aware, as the whole world was, that at home the Chandrasekhar government was in serious trouble and in danger of collapsing. Despite that impediment, you were able to convince them, look, we are serious, we do need your help.
We are serious, we need your help, and therefore what is desirable and what can be done. And then we also told them or indicated to them that we have our responsibility, we will take it to the government, and whatever government is there will be convinced, hopefully, of what negotiations we had done, and we could convince the political system also to do it.
Something else that happened at this period was that the RBI also pledged part of India's gold reserves. You say in your book that 46.91 tons were sent abroad to raise a loan of $405 million. Today, and you point this out in your book, this would not be considered a big sum. In fact, you say in your book, India probably receives that quantity of money on a single day at times. Yet in 1990, and I'm quoting you, the amount was crucial to prevent a default. That is again another sign of the parlous situation we were in. 405 million was crucial to prevent a default.
Right. I mean, as I mentioned to you, we explored all possibilities. I mean, whether this way, that way, how to raise the resources. The whole idea of shipping the gold was not so much the amount that we raised, but the amount itself. Please remember, what was 400 million in 1990 was a significant amount. I mean, it's not a too small an amount as it may look like today. The point is that these all go together in a sense. The international institutions, not only IMF, but also World Bank and others, as well as other financial institutions, which were willing to provide help, wanted to be convinced that we are doing everything that we can ourselves in order to raise the resources. It is from that angle you have to look at it.
Absolutely.
Therefore, we said that yes, we under our law, there are limitations. We can't transfer more than X% and all that, 15%. There are some limits on the do. So we can pledge our gold up to a certain level. We will then try to manage it and send it. Therefore, the action also showed to the people of the country also that it's a serious situation.
Absolutely. Now, there's one last fascinating story that you have to tell. It's from July 1991, just before you ceased being deputy governor of the RBI. The new government under Narasimha Rao had taken over. Dr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, and he devalued the rupee. And it happened in 2 installments. Apparently, after the first installment, Mr. Narasimha Rao was unnerved by the adverse political response and wanted to stop the second installment. You received, you write in your book, a phone call from Dr. Manmohan Singh at 9:30 in the morning. But it's the answer you gave him that saved the day and ensured that the second installment happened. Can you recount to the audience what exactly did you say?
No, I have said that. I have jumped because the whole idea was that the code word, at least that I had used, was hop, skip, and jump. So it's a two-step devaluation that was done, and therefore, I said I have jumped, or I might have also added that I have already done what was originally thought of.
Can I ask you this? When you got the call from Dr. Manmohan Singh at 9:30 in the morning, had you actually already jumped, or did you sense that you were about to be told, don't jump, and to preclude that, you said it because it gave him an answer?
I have already jumped.
You had already jumped.
When the call came, I had jumped. I had already announced the change because I do it actually little before 9:30 because 9:30 is the time of the market.
As you must know, Dr. Rangarajan, it has been widely reported and speculated that Mr. Narasimha Rao got, as they colloquially put it, cold feet before the second installment of devaluation and wanted to stop it. Dr. Manmohan Singh was well aware that stopping it would be the wrong thing to do. And it's said anecdotally that he was very keen to ensure it went ahead. And your answer saved the day, which is why I asked, had you jumped? Or did you give him that answer because it was the best way of ensuring the right conclusion happened?
What you are saying is something very clever, but I don't think I did that. I think all that I did was that exactly what because the conversation did not proceed further. I mean, actually, the actually, he himself did not say anything. I mean, in the sense, I say a neutral question regarding what is the situation or something. So
without being mischievous, I'll simply point out the way you answered that. Your words were beautifully, deftly, and cleverly chosen. You said, I don't think I did that. That leaves you a little let out clause, but I won't push you further. Let's live with the delicious ambiguity inherent in that answer. Let's come now, Dr. Rangarajan, to your 5 years as governor of Andhra Pradesh. Now, while you were governor in Andhra Pradesh, you also had the opportunity to serve as governor of Orissa, of Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. In Orissa, you discovered how strong the hold of astrology can be on Indian politicians. Apparently, Giridhar Gaman, who was chief minister at the time, would only call on you at auspicious times.
Well, when we discuss about what time to meet or something, then he will come up with some odd number. I mean, and then I did ask him one time. Then he believed I recall that he said he believes in numerology or something like that, and therefore he chose that time. I mean, that's the occasion on which it's said. But that's his belief. I mean, it's not my belief. That is his belief.
Absolutely. In fact, you quote him in the book. He said to you, I shall call on you at 11:13 a.m. You're right. It is a very odd time to choose. Most people would say either call at 11 or 11:15. 11:13 clearly shows that astrology, numerology, and perhaps general superstition mattered a lot to the chief minister of the day.
Well, I'm not talking about generalizing about everybody. I think I am. These are interesting episodes. I mean, please don't read too much into all of these things. I mean,
absolutely. But there's another wonderful episode. You were advised to visit Puri on the occasion of the Rath festival, and you were reluctant to do so because you felt that as the governor in a secular democracy, there shouldn't be such an obvious presence of the governor at a religious festival. But there's something your secretary said to you that actually changed your mind. Tell us what he said.
No, you see, there are two things. One is the role of the governor in a secular state on what does he do on special occasions and so on. The second is the fact that I'm also not a great believer. So that I refer to in some other context in the same chapter about going to the Tirupati temple. So therefore I was not very keen or reluctant. I was reluctant to go. But then he said that in the Rath festival, which is important for Orissa is concerned. I mean, I think that is the most important festival as far as Orissa is concerned. And the earlier on, it is the king who represented everybody at the festival and initiated certain things. And therefore, the tradition has continued. The governor is in the place of the Maharaja, so he did it. So and then he said that, look, since the governor is considered to be the representative of the Maharaja, and you are interceding with God, the idea is that if you did something which is not consistent with what is the normal practice, and if something goes wrong, you will be blamed. And therefore, he said, exactly, if it did not rain and we had a bad monsoon next year, then you will be blamed for it.
Absolutely. You deliciously quote your secretary. According to your book, he said to you, sir, you may not go if you don't want to, but if it happens that the monsoons fail this year, people will blame you and put it on your absence from the Rath festival. And you changed your mind and you went.
Yes. Well, I mean, you see, these are all not issues of, generally I would like to keep certain things out of the
Oh, but these
purview
are
of the.
delightful stories, sir. These are stories that reveal human nature and the quirks that make life fun. So don't hesitate to talk about them, because these are the gems in your book. Now, there's one other. When you were governor of Tamil Nadu, the Supreme Court ruled that Jaya Lalita's appointment as chief minister was invalid because she had earlier been convicted in a corruption case. You had to, as governor, persuade her not just to step down, but appoint someone else as chief minister in her place. How difficult was that?
Well, she was prepared for it in the sense that the legal opinion was very clear. The moment the judgment is pronounced, she ceases to be the chief minister, and therefore that vacancy has to be filled in. The point really is that there was a legal issue that whether a person who has been convicted but who has appealed and who is on bail, whether the restriction of holding an office applies or not. It's not determining the case per se. It was the legal issue that was being decided, that when a person goes on appeal and a bail is granted, whether the person is exonerated from the restrictions imposed because of the conviction.
And the Supreme Court said no.
The Supreme Court said that the restrictions continue even though the person may be on bail. Therefore, actually, she was acquitted on appeal.
But that was later. At this moment of time,
that was later.
When
that
the
was
Supreme
later.
Court said
at that time. So therefore, this is an important Supreme Court judgment.
Yeah, but
on a principle
judgment out. Let's talk about what happened when you met Jaya Lalita. What did you say?
Okay,
Was she reluctant?
So, yeah. So I told her that she came and met me, and in fact, I was at that time concurrently governor of Andhra Pradesh, because the judgment was coming that morning. I had come from Hyderabad to Chennai. Once the judgment was given, she came. She called on me. I told her that the position of the governor is as follows: that the governor doesn't act on his own or on her own, except when there is president's rule. And I said, there is no president's rule now. Therefore, there has to be a chief minister to be in place as quickly as possible. So I told her that this morning. I don't want this day to pass away without somebody being chief minister in your place. She was, of course, somewhat in a subdued mood, and she was, of course, upset by the judgment. And she said, I will have to convene all my legislatures, call them for a meeting, and somebody has to be chosen as the leader. I said, I am willing to wait, but please do call the meeting as quickly as possible. That is within the day, and get somebody elected. He agreed, and he went away. And by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the night, Mr. Paneerselvam was elected as a leader. And before 12 o'clock in the night, the new cabinet was sworn in. And I must also say that every member who took office as minister on that day did so crying and weeping.
It's a wonderful story, and you've given us an insider's view of that otherwise awkward and tricky moment that you faced, because you said she was subdued. Clearly, she was upset. She was reluctant to want to have to appoint someone, but you ensured not only that she did so, but she did it before the end of the day. We're going to have to take a break there, Dr. Rangarajan, but when I come back, I want to talk to you about certain issues to do with the behaviors of governors these days, which have become not just controversial, but the subject of public debate. As someone who's been an illustrious governor, not just of Andhra Pradesh, but Orissa, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala, your insight on these three issues, which I'll bring up after the break, would be invaluable. See you in a moment's time. Welcome back to the second part of an interview with Dr. C. Rangarajan, former Governor of the Reserve Bank of India and former Governor of Andhra Pradesh. Dr. Rangarajan, these days, as you know, the behavior of governors has become controversial, and it's also become the subject of public debate. I want now, in this second part, to raise with you three instances where governors have created controversy and get your opinion about their behavior in each instance. First, ministers, as you know, serve at the pleasure of the governor. But was it proper for Arif Muhammad Khan, the governor of Kerala, to withdraw his pleasure without the concurrence of the chief minister, and in fact, in defiance of the chief minister's wishes?
Yeah, I think we should not go into specific issues. I think we really need to talk about what I perceive to be the role.
Let's leave Arif Muhammad Khan's name out of it, although you and I and the whole world knows that that is the specific instance that has happened because it's in the news.
But I think all the details are...
Can a governor choose to dismiss a minister whenever he wants without being asked by the chief minister to do so?
I think this is a legal issue. I can give my opinion, but I think this is... I will come to it. It's a constitutional issue. I do hope that at some particular point it will get clarified. But the point really is that I have quite clearly stated in my book that my perception of the role of the governor of the state is that the Constitution does not envisage two centers of power. The Constitution essentially says that the governor acts on the advice of the chief minister. But there are places where government can exercise discretion. I have quoted the Supreme Court judgments on where that discretion is. So outside of that discretion areas, the governor is to act on the advice of the chief minister.
Can I ask you this? Does the governor's area of discretion include dismissing a minister when he hasn't been asked by the chief minister to do so?
According to the judgment that I have seen, it is not within the discretionary powers.
That's very clear. It is not within the discretionary powers of a governor to dismiss a minister when the chief minister has not asked him to do so.
That is my interpretation. That would be the interpretation. The point really is, as I have mentioned, the governor is not elected. This you can see a considerable amount of discussion in the Constituent Assembly regarding whether the governor should be elected or whether the governor should be nominated. Finally, they decided that it is against creating two centers of power if both are elected. Even though, as you know, there are some countries in the world.
Absolutely, sir. Let's not get deflected into what happens in other countries, because that doesn't apply to us. You made two important points, which I just repeat for the audience. First of all, you believe the Constitution does not envisage two centers of power. The governor acts on the advice of the chief minister. And secondly, you've said your interpretation is that it is not within the discretionary powers of the governor to dismiss a minister unless he's been asked specifically by the chief minister to do so. Let's come to the second issue. And that is an issue you've written about in your book as well. What happens when a governor and a chief minister disagree? This is what you write. If the governor disagrees with what the chief minister is doing, he or she can discuss it with the chief minister or even write about it in their letter to the president. But then you add, beyond that, he or she cannot make a public display of disagreement. Now, as you know, and I know, and the audience knows, this is precisely what Jagdeep Dhankar repeatedly did when he was governor of Bengal. So by your interpretation, Mr. Dhankar was acting wrongly.
Why do you want me to say that? First, I have clearly stated what my opinion is. I mean, my interpretation is there are also, let's clarify a little bit more. I mean, I think this is a situation in which where the governor disagrees with the chief minister. Persuasion is the first choice as far as the governor is concerned. The otherwise, if there are serious issues which are of constitutional nature, he can write to the president, and the governor always writes a letter to the president every month. Therefore, in my opinion, public discussion of specific issues on which there are differences is not advisable, and it is not wise.
The third issue is what happens when governors, and this happens fairly frequently these days, sit on legislation and delay giving their assent. Can a governor, in your opinion, sit on legislation indefinitely, or should there be a time limit by when a governor must act?
I have given the answer in the book itself. I mean, I have clearly stated this is an ambiguous situation at the present, and there should be a constitutional amendment to ensure that the reasonable amount of time that the governor can take can be indicated. I mean, I think this is a situation in which the governor acts in such a way that his purpose is achieved, but without formally doing it. Therefore, I would say that what is essentially desirable is an amendment, an appropriate amendment in the Constitution to fix a time limit.
Okay. Finally, you write in your book, and I'm quoting you, governors have to understand not only the powers they have, but also their limitations. And you write, when individuals who were previously leading politicians are appointed governors, the itch to act is evident sometimes. This is what they must learn to control. How important is this advice?
Well, this is human instinct to be involved. I mean, the people who spent lifetime administering and controlling and doing things, when they come into the governor's house, Raj Bhavan, and then to be told that you have a position, but you are supposed to act on the advice of somebody. It's a difficult situation. But I say that is what is demanded by the Constitution. And therefore, one has learned to somehow restrain oneself and act on the advice of the chief minister.
That's very important advice, and I'll simply repeat it for those who are listening. Governors have to understand not only their powers, more importantly, they also have to understand their limitations. I thank you, Dr. Rangarajan, for this interview. And once again, I should hold up your book for the audience. Here it is. It's called Forks in the Road, My Days at RBI and Beyond. And it is released today, Monday, the 7th of November. Thank you very much indeed. Take care, Dr. Rangarajan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.